Here we are. Hello, hi everyone. Hi, Natalie. Welcome here in my life today. Hello. Just a quick introduction for who Natalie is. Natalie is a time management coach, and she specialized for founders and owners of small businesses, and she helps her people in understanding how to actually generate an agenda that works with their own needs in terms of professional life, but also personal life. So time management here, it's something that is going to be described not in terms of timelines for project, but in terms of how you can actually manage your time, your schedule, etc. for hitting your personal goals and your professional goal at the same time. Is it correct?
Sounds good. It is that thing of, it's not about timelines, because the thing about time is that you can't manage it. It ticks on regardless. It's very much about managing yourself and how you show up in any moment of time, and what you choose to do with your time, what you choose to say yes to, what you choose to say no to, where you choose to show up for yourself, where you sometimes choose to procrastinate, etc. So it's all those sorts of things that I think will be coming into our conversation today.
Yeah. Usually I'm used to have some slides to talk in my monologue, but today there's not going to be any slide, guys, because it's going to be a chit chat with Natalie. So, yeah, I have put down some notes, so I would like to, I have them in front of me. As Natalie was saying, time is a very peculiar thing in our lives, because actually something that we can't manage. We can't create a new time, as we can do, for instance, with the food. Instead of one tree, we're going to plant 2 trees, and we're going to have the double of the fruit at the end of the season. Time doesn't work like that. And at the same time, it's creating so much stress, because we can't come back as well back in time. So whatever, the time, it's always the same, and our world, our society, our businesses are not the same. They are getting faster and faster, and we need to understand how to put these tasks to do inside something that is measured always in the same way.
Yeah. And I think that's how a lot of people approach things to begin with. It's like, I've got all these tasks, and they do recognize that there is a limited amount of time. And so the temptation is to go, right, here's all the things on my to-do list. Here's all the things in the inbox. Here's all the things rattling around the back of my head. How can I squish it into the week? But actually, it's not about the volume of what you do. It's about the impact of what you do. And so rather than focusing on the task, really the first step is to come back up to that bigger picture. And the title that you've put on screen about the calendar reflecting your values, not your tasks, is exactly that. It's looking at that bigger picture. Now, values could be, in 2 senses: values as in integrity and all that sort of stuff, but also what will I value having achieved in 90 days, 1 year, 5 years? And that's kind of where you need to start, because with all those little tasks, they can shout very loudly to try and get your attention here and now, but they can be the treadmill tasks where as soon as you've ticked them off, it almost needs doing again, like posting on LinkedIn or something like that. And so it is coming back up to that bigger picture, the sorts of things where if you have, there's a mate that you only see once a year when you go back home to see your parents. What would you remember to tell them about your year? You You wouldn't say, well, on Monday the 1st I did a post, and on Tuesday the 2nd I did a post. It's sort of that bigger picture, what actually you value as such.
So you're saying that in a reality, first of all, we need to understand the big picture as like what we want to achieve in 1 year time, what is going to be our target, and then getting worried about how to achieve it in the week.
Yes, so it is starting with that bigger picture, because there will always be more to do than time available. And that isn't necessarily a bad thing. That just reflects how many options and possibilities we have these days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's having that goal, having that North Star, that vision, is a way to filter all those things that creep onto the to-do list. And as we're on socials and we see somebody doing this and somebody doing that, and we think, oh, I could do that and I could do this. And yes, there is lots that you could be doing, but it's how do they line up with that goal? So old person said that time is money, but it's past and ideas change. Yeah, I mean, time can be money, but there's a difference in that you can always make more money, but you can't create more time. But I find the analogy between time and money works really well for the idea of investing them. You can only put, if you've got a quid, you can only put it in one investment at a time. If you've got an hour, you can only invest it in one activity at a time. I mean, if we go down the multitasking route, where you kind of think, oh, I'm investing in several places, all the studies show that multitasking is just a fantastic way to do several things really badly. So in terms of time and money, you can only invest them in one place, but we seem to be much more aware of what's the ROI for my money, and we accept that there are different timelines and different risks for money. But the same applies to time. So it's like, out of all these tasks, which ones are going to move me closest to the goal, i.e. get me the best ROI in that time? What are your thoughts there?
I don't know, in a way, like I wouldn't go directly in the investing. I think that there is a strong correlation between time and money, for the simple reason that even when we think about our career, and doesn't matter if we are founders or like simply employee, for instance, our experience is a different salary at the end of the year, for the simple reason that, so it means that 1 hour of our time has a different value, is valued more than when we are junior. So one of the purpose is just like I can see like so much correlation between money and time, and for instance, personally speaking, my goal is just like trying to achieve more money in the same hour, because I can just manage better the client. I have the experience and I want to dedicate my time to like 5 clients instead of 10 clients. Because, for instance, when I was working with freelances, I remember that once I had this discovery call with this guy, and I asked, what is your goal? What do you want to achieve? And it told me like having clients. Okay, how many clients actually do you want? And the guy told me, I don't know. I mean, up to 10. And I was like, how many clients do you have now? 0. And I said, no, I mean, this is something that it's coming back in the purpose that if you're gonna, for instance, if you're gonna have one client, you can dedicate 40 hours per week to that client. If you have 10 clients, you can dedicate 4 hours per week, so half of the day per client. It means also that your service is going to change, because you can't provide the same the same service that is requiring 40 hours,
Yeah.
as it's going to be in 4. You need a team, or you need other strategies, you need other system behind, but the two together can't be the same. So if you want to have one client, you need to make sure that that client can pay you the final salary that you want at the end. So your hours needs to be valued more. I can see also another comment. In architecture, for example, there are chrono program of jobs. Yeah, this is true. And I mean, chrono program happens simply because time is a sort of boundaries, is a sort of limit. When we work with project, we have one end, and it's usually determined by the time. Another factor could be like cost. So usually cost and the time goes together, and there's gonna be always some tolerance because they always know that you're gonna go over time or over budget, and therefore there's gonna be a little tolerance that you're free to manage by yourself. But this goes into project management topic that it's not fully part of this live. I don't know if Natalie, you want to talk
Well, I
about.
think it sort of seeps into this, because if we're looking at how founders, owners show up and manage their time in a week and choose what they do and don't say no to, one of the things you picked up on there is projects that go over cost and over time. They're probably interrelated. Is in terms of time management. One, humans are spectacularly bad at estimating how long tasks take.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you find yourself overcommitting, under-delivering, it can be tempting to beat yourself up and to say, oh, I'm just terrible at it. Turns out you're just human. But then once you're aware of that, you can sort of almost factor it in and look for, well, where do I underestimate how long things take? Because sometimes what we do is we go, right, okay, the core task takes an hour. But what we forget is, well, by the time I've booted up the program and reviewed my notes from last time, that's 15 minutes at the end. By the time I've whizzed the plans across to somebody to get their feedback and save the latest version, that's another 15 minutes. And so we start to go, okay, actually, that task that I think is an hour is actually an hour and a half. Other times people are very much, oh, I know on a good day with a fair wind behind me, if everything goes according to plan, it's 60 minutes. But if we actually do a time audit, what we start to see is that, well, okay, yeah, it can be done in 60 minutes but if there's a day where, I don't know, you're doing writing up a report or a proposal, and your brain's just not quite in gear, and the phone interrupts you halfway through with a doctor's appointment, whatever. And so it's kind of, if you're always working on best case scenario, then it's now. The other side of that is you don't want to go too far in the opposite direction, where instead of saying, oh, it's a 60-minute task if it all goes perfectly, I know I'll put a 2-hour time block in the day, because Parkinson's law is that tasks expand to fill the time available. So if you give yourself 2 hours, you'll take 2 hours. So there is a dance, if you like, to work out what's realistic so I don't overcommit, but equally what's realistic so that I don't end up back against the wall and not doing my best work.
Yeah, I mean, I think like you had explained it perfectly. And one thing that I wanted to talk about during this live was just like one tip that changed completely my mind was just like when I drop off with a to-do list. And because after a while, I just realized that I was not able to keep like be true with whatever was saying the to-do list. and I have just started creating the slots inside of my calendar. So, and that in that way, I was able to realizing what actually, I mean, could take one task instead of the other one, because it's very easy to start creating bullet point and saying like, okay, I need A, B, C, D, E, etc. But once you're gonna go deeper and you're gonna see, okay, A means A1, A2, etc., etc., everything gets more clear, and our organization inside our minds get more like, okay, yeah, I have the plan now. Like, you know, that expression, I love this expression in English. It sounds like a plan. I love it.
Yeah, the danger with the to-do list is that, yeah, as you say, with it having bullet points, it makes everything feel like everything's equally important or everything's equally urgent. The other thing about it is that when you've written a lovely list and there's 10, 20 items on it, it feels like it's finite. And so there is that temptation to go, I don't need to plan. I shall just work my way from top to bottom and everything will get done, as if nothing is ever going to be added onto your to-do list. But reality is, I haven't come across somebody who doesn't have things added to their to-do list. And so it is that, okay, if I've only, you get to decide how many hours you want to work and when those hours are in the week. And it's kind of going, okay, I'm going to, and this is the other distinction, what's most important and what's urgent. Because very often the urgent things shout loud and going, well, if you don't get me done today, then you're going to lose this benefit. Whereas very often the more strategic things don't need to be done this week or next week or the week up, and they can end up just always slipping. And what happens with those urgent tasks, to say a lot of those are the sorts of things that you kind of do on repeat, and so you see, if I do it, here's the upside, here's the benefit of doing that task. But what you don't necessarily see is, well, actually, by doing that task, I'm not doing this task over here, and therefore I lose the benefit of this task. So actually, is it better to get the benefit of this task and lose the benefit of that task? So coming back to putting it on the calendar, when you start working down your to-do list, yes, it forces you to think, does that need 20 minutes? Does that need 2 hours? That starts to sort of coming back to that idea of ROI. What's the, if I give this an hour or that an hour, which one has the most impact? And then when you've worked down your list and filled out your calendar, it's like there is no more room. You see what isn't going to get done, and then you get to ask the question, okay, are the things that made it onto my calendar more impactful, more important, more urgent than the things that didn't make it onto the calendar? And if the answer isn't what you want it to be, you get to swap things in and out. And it just makes you much more aware of getting that best ROI on your working hours.
I think you are replying Amar. Thank you, Gloria. Amar is saying, in other words, we need to explore all possible options. Yes or no, in a way, like at the beginning, you just need to quickly understand like the benefits and disbenefits of one option instead of the other one, and just creating your own list of priorities based on high importance, in medium and low importance.
Yeah.
Like usually, I just work in low, medium, and high priorities.
Yeah, do we need to explore all possible options? I think it's really beneficial to, once a week or so, just have a brain dump to get everything out and everything in the same place, so that you don't have a bit in your inbox and a bit on your to-do list and a bit in Asana, Evernote, Notion, etc. so that you get to see the overall picture, because, using the David Allen quote, your mind is for having ideas, not holding your ideas. So getting everything out so that you've then got the brain power to weigh up all those options is really good.
Can see there is a question, Irina. Do you set a goal for every week, or do you work consistently for a bigger goal to achieve in a year, for example? Do you want to reply, Natalie? Or should
Absolutely. So do you set a goal for every week, or you work consistently for a bigger goal? So I think it's looking at that. Yes, set the bigger goal, and then you start to break it down. Now, depending on whether it's something you're really familiar with or something new, depends on how you might chunk that up. So
Yeah.
I know you've mentioned the next one, self-study. So if you were doing a year-long course, you might be really clear, I need to read this amount each week and write this type of essay each week. So that's nice and sort of steady. For other things where it's new, where you're launching a new product or a new service or entering a new market, you might just set yourself a 90-day goal, because your crystal ball's a bit murkier, and it's like, right, that's as far ahead as I think I can take a good guess, and at the 90-day mark I'll have a good check-in. But then you'd break that 90-day goal down into something weekly, because if you wait the 90-day to see, have I hit it, haven't I hit it, it's quite late to then course correct. Whereas if you sort of set those weekly goals, you can see, am I coming off track? Is it enough that I want to course correct? Is it enough that I actually want to blow the original plan up and start planning again?
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
sorry?
what would you recommend to not get stuck in the routine and keep progressing and feeling this progress and stay motivated? The stay motivated is really important, because people talk in terms of willpower, but it's kind of one of those things, when you're feeling tired, you maybe haven't had a day go as you wanted to, willpower can go AWOL. So that staying motivated is having a really strong why in the first place. And the other thing that's worth doing is making a note of all your wins, all the things you have done. Because especially if you're going for a bigger project, for 99% of the time, you haven't achieved it. And what you end up doing is looking at what's the gap between where I am now and what I want to achieve. And you're seeing all the things you haven't done. So just making, at the end of the day, this is what I did do. Some people couch it in terms of celebrating. For some people, that doesn't really land. For me, I like the word acknowledge. I like to acknowledge what I've done. Celebrate sometimes feels a bit over the top, but acknowledging, I did do this thing that was uncomfortable. I did complete this thing, which is kind of routine, but if I didn't do it as part of the routine, I wouldn't get to the end goal.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Just one thing, she was asking also a schedule, a balanced schedule for combining work, self-study, and rest. So I follow the philosophy like listen to your heart, listen to your body. So rest, it's something that actually is getting critical nowadays, because we feel like we are always behind. We are always in lack of time, missing time, wasting time, procrastinating, all those things. And therefore, rest is always lower priorities. Like we just can skip sleeping, we just can skip the weekend out, because we haven't finished our to-do list, for instance. So one thing for resting is just like acknowledging that we are human and we need to rest. For the first times, I suggest you to force resting, because after you do it, you can see after how you gain energies, etc. How you're gonna be more productive when you're gonna start your work again after the resting time, and because you know in the future, you know that actually if you rest after, you can be like more productive. Resting became something more and more like a habit, something more needed. It's becoming like a part of our work hours. So I always say something like, when I was studying music, there was always say, I remember that the people were skipping at the beginning the notes for the silent, because they were just saying, there's no sound, I don't need to play, so there's no game here, and I'm gonna skip it. And I remember always the teacher like saying, telling off my I mean, me and all my friends say something like, no, you can't skip it, because if the pause is there, it's because it's needed. We just need to breathe, we just need to like rest, like sleeping, etc. So silence and sound has the same value. If you find it in the music sheet, you need to follow whatever is written. So, I mean, for me, the rest is exactly as it's gonna be with a working hours. If I need like 40 hours per week of work, I need X hours of rest per weekend, for instance.
Yeah, you're right. People can be very tempted to skip over the rest because they think, like, when I have got through the to-do list, then I will rest, which, as we've established, is a false assumption that the to-do list will ever get finished. But it's about remembering that the rest will actually make you more productive. So a lot of the people I work with have kids, but let's face it, most of us, if we don't have our own kids, and maybe have nieces, nephews, cousins, and parents tend to be really good at getting the kids to bed on time. Now, okay, part of that is because they want to have an evening to themselves, but a big factor is the fact that they know if the kids haven't had enough sleep, they are utter grot bags the next day, that their emotional control, their self-regulation, their ability to make good choices just goes. And the same applies to us. Now, yes, we might be able to dampen down some of that, sort of negative content, but it's there, and we're having to put energy into controlling our choices, our behaviours the next day. Secondly, because we're tired, when we are working on something, instead of just flowing through it, we tend to make more mistakes. We tend to be slower whilst we make more mistakes. And then, not only is it taking us longer to do the task there, we have to invest more time later to correct the mistakes that we made when we didn't do it properly first time. But it's not just the overnight sleep that's important. It's about taking little breaks during the day, having, say, a decent lunch hour. So there's a couple of studies out there. I'm not going to get the details off the top of my head. One was looking at judges to do with it was immigration and parole, and you would hope that your success rate on something like that was to do with how strong your case was and all that. But what they found was it had more to do with what time you were on the docket. So if you had the first slot of the day, you had a good chance of being successful. But as the judges got more and more tired and were relying on just assumptions, that your chances slid until they stopped for recess or lunch. And then if you were first on the docket after that, your chance of success went back up. Just in case anyone out there is before a judge, make sure you're early in the day. So that's judges, where it shows how their decision making improved with rest. But there's also studies with kids where if they sorted them into similar cohorts, if they had a test in the morning versus a test in the afternoon, the morning cohort did better than the afternoon cohort, except if for the afternoon cohort, send them out to play for 10 minutes, get them back in, do the test, and then the test scores come back together. So don't see rest as wasteful, see it as an investment in later productivity.
Yeah, and as well for rest, also time with your beloved, to sports, like love, all of them, even if you're not like resting, like sleeping, in any case, they have a mind power for helping you out and being more productive after.
And it's important to remember that rest doesn't have to be restful as such. We tend to say, oh, rest, that's sleeping or whatever. But there can be active activities that are actually energizing. People who run very often, they might be tired before they go on the run, but actually they're energized by the time they come back. So it doesn't have to be just sitting there putting your feet up. It might be going for a walk or doing some yoga or whatever it is that gives you that energy.
I am conscious of time, and we already have an hour. I just want to quick touch also the part of if you have a team, you need to learn how to delegate. Because I mean, Natalie and I, we were talking offline another day, and we were just saying that there's so many people, when they start having a team, actually they believe they can buy time, because the people are gonna do their work. In reality, people get busier and busier, because in reality they need also to manage those people, and probably it's also going to be like a new task they never had to face before, and therefore I mean, it's every time that something is new, it's going to take longer than doing it the same task the second time. So yeah, I just want to very quickly touch point also on I mean, managing the time if actually you have a team. So if actually part of your goal is delegated to someone else where you have control on them, no, really, like it just
It is that, there is that idea of I shall get the team, I shall hand things over, and I shall have more time. They don't factor in the time needing to be spent with the team, both on an ongoing basis and the initial basis, because very often to begin with, there's two things really. There's it's just quicker to do it myself. And technically, to begin with, that's absolutely true. It is quicker to do yourself than to explain how to do it. But it's remembering this is an investment of time. Yes, the task that takes an hour is going to take you 2.5 hours to take them through, explain what to do, how to do it, why it's done that way, etc. And then the following week, when it needs doing, where instead of maybe you showing them, they're doing it and you're just supervising, providing commentary, tweaking bits, and then it maybe only takes an hour and a half. And it's not until week 3, week 4 that you actually see the benefits. So it's remembering that's investment of time, but whilst you're doing your planning, whereas previously you allowed an hour for it, you've got to remember that you've got to find that extra time. Not that you find time, you allocate time to that task. And then on an ongoing basis, it is recognizing that all the questions that you'd probably answer in your head on the go, the team are going to want to have time with you. And so what can be really useful is people, rather than just kind of going open door, come whenever you need to, is having some specific time, and the frequency will depend on the team member, the task, etc. Because otherwise people go, oh, I don't know when I'm going to see Natalie, so I'll go and interrupt her now to get this question answered. Whereas if every Thursday at 10 we've got time on the calendar, then they tend to save up all their questions so that you can ask. But also because I'm not seeing Natalie for another 7 days, what is it that I've got coming up that I could do with picking her brains about now? And so it makes it a really efficient 20, 30, 60, depends on the team member and the tasks that they're doing. And if there are odd bits and pieces that come up that do need to be dealt with more urgently. But again, that needs to be factored into that sort of CEO timetable of having a little bit of white space in the week to allow for the fact that curveballs happen. You don't know what the curveballs are going to be, but you can allow a bit of white space in your calendar so that you've always got space for them without them completely scuppering plan A for the week.
And yeah, I think that these tip to give a slot to your team members, a specific slot in your calendar, it's more important, especially if you're working like remotely. Because based on my own experience, like when I was working in the office, I mean, and the person that you need it's more or less close to you, so you can see if that person maybe is talking with some other colleagues, if he's on a call, if he's not there because he just went to the loo or just to take a coffee, or even to see if they are actually really busy. And I remember that when I was going to the office, I was actually, okay, I'm just gonna leave it for tomorrow, something like that. When we are working remotely, you are missing all these unspoken languages sign, let's say like this, and therefore like people are always like sending messages, calling. The Teams chat is always exploding, and this is something that is not productive at all. So, because at the end of the day, every time that we are receiving one notification, I read once that actually takes 20 minutes. Even if we're not going to open the notification, it takes 20 minutes to the person to come back to the same deep focus that I had before receiving the notification. So if we think how many notifications we are recently receiving, it's insane. This number is completely crazy. So this could be also one of the reasons why many founders don't want people to work from home anymore, because they say like they face a lack of productivity. Their notification is one of the reasons. So using Natalie's tip to book in your calendar the slot for that team member, it's very useful. Thank you, Natalie. And another thing that I want to say, I never get tired of saying it, is that remember that if there is a team, there is a reason behind it. No one wants to pay like 10 people if actually can pay only one person. No one wants to complicate life situation involving 10 people like doing their hiring, sharing, like buying new licenses, etc., if it's not needed. So if we ended up in a situation where we actually need people, is because you can't do by yourself all the tasks anymore. And it's not gonna be easy at the beginning, delegating and trusting, because at the end of the day, it's a matter of trust the people that are in your team. But you need to learn how to read those people, what tasks can be done by that team member instead of the other one, because we have all our profiles. You need to learn also that we are all different. So if a task for you takes like 10 minutes, it doesn't mean that it's going to take 10 minutes also for another one. Usually I do always the example of math. Like when we were at school, some people were so good at math and they were so quickly giving back the result, and other people were not, simply because the mind is structured differently. And that's perfectly fine. But if you learn how to read all these unspoken signs, you can actually create a better plan, and you can see that actually delegating can save you time.
Yes, it can, but you have to do the investment up front.
In office, it's importance of proactivity. Well, productivity is important even if you're gonna work remotely, to be honest. I mean, because if we are not productive, then yeah, we can't, achieve our goals. Of course, like working remotely and working in the office follow two different schedules completely. One is the time. So when you work in the office, you work per time because you work with the control of the monitor. So you work 9 to 5. When you work remotely, you work with the trust. So it maybe to finish this week, it's not gonna require 40 hours. It's gonna require 35. It's gonna require 45. But what is important working remotely is just you achieve your task.
Absolutely, yes, yeah, because that's different, really, of productivity. It isn't a matter of being busy and spinning your wheels. It's creating something, the result that you wanted.
And another thing that I wanted to add to your previous discussion was just that when you were talking about the weeks, that we just need to not to move in the next week or whatever was planned, but this is gonna take time for achieving like something that is working for us. Just remember that sometimes your task, like you can't start something new, like a new task, if you haven't received something else from another person external to you. Usually I say like external stakeholders. So if you are in a situation where you actually needs to like work with some external stakeholders and have a back and forward, you can't just leave everything to the end. So
which speaks to Daniela's point about being proactive, to sort of thinking, what am I going to be doing this week, next week, the week after? What do I need for that? And then just checking in with whether it's internal or external stakeholders. It's, are you on track to deliver what you said you deliver at the time? Because if they can't, the more notice they give you, the more you can reflect that in your plans.
yeah, I mean, do you? I will have so many other questions for you, so many other things that we can talk about, but I'm conscious about the time.
Yeah.
So I'm not adding more more information.
If people who are watching or catching the replay have got any questions, either about what we've chatted about today, maybe a rabbit hole that we started to go down and they've got more questions on, or topics that we haven't even touched on today, more than happy for them to drop you a message, drop me a message, drop a comment, and then either I can answer it offline, or if there's people want a part 2, we can do a part 2 maybe next month.
Okay, sounds amazing. People, thank you so much for had been here. I know that this was your lunch break if you are in UK, and I think like we have filled it almost all of it. So thank you so much for had been here, Daniela, Irina, and whoever else was online. That I can see it from the software here. Thank you so much, Natalie, for had been my guest. I'm really keen about the time of management topics, so we're more than happy going with a part 2. And see you for the next live, and see you, Natalie, in another live together. Okay, bye.